All right, welcome back to Extraordinary Unlocked. Very excited to have Jesse on the call today and really talking about his career journey. It's been exceptional, a lot of twists and turns. It's probably one of the most nonlinear journeys I've heard recently. And so, very excited to have Jesse share his story. So, Jesse, please introduce yourself to all of the extraordinaires.
Love it. Eugene, thanks for having me. Yeah, my name's Jesse Toth. I reside in Rochester, New York. I am a leadership development coach with a company called Leaders Inspire. We'll get into that a little bit later. I am married to my wife, Allie. We have two beautiful children, Cooper and Maddie. And yeah, that's probably a 10,000 foot view.
No, that's awesome. Thank you so much, Jesse. And the question I always begin with, what is the first job you ever had?
Great question. My very first job I ever had was weeding for my dad's small business growing up, doing odd jobs around the company. And, but that was all under the table. So my first W-2 job was a soccer referee. So I was a referee. My first game, I'll never forget this. I was 14 years old and I was reffing 10-year-old girls. And I was just getting blasted by one of the coaches the whole game. Watch the elbow, sir. And I'm like, I've been playing soccer forever. These girls are playing completely within the rules. And I'm like, I can't take this every single game. And so I think I lasted maybe 4 or 5 games. And I'm like, this isn't for me.
Referees are probably it's one of the toughest jobs out there, and especially
Yes.
at 14 years old, you would think that the coach would be a bit more merciful, especially for the age group. What was the age group?
10-year-old girls.
Like,
There was no mercy. There was zero grace. I'm like, this is my first game out here. And yes,
yeah,
to this day, I have so much grace and empathy for the referees that ref, because I'm a soccer player too. And I'm like, I don't know how you guys do this. This is a hard job.
it is a very hard job, especially youth sports. It was probably the rec league, 10-year-old girls, and a
Yes.
coach being able to give it to a 14-year-old. Oh, God bless them. That was a tough situation. So thank you so much. I'm glad you failed fast and just said that's not for me and
Hmm.
moved into another career trajectory. So let's go back into the time machine and say, okay, see, goes to university, does his thing, and take us from there because that's actually I feel like where it really begins.
Yes. Yeah. So I went to Houghton College. 5 out of the 6 of my siblings all went to this college to play soccer. I studied business there because I didn't really have a set passion at the time. My brother was studying business, who's 3 years older than I am. I went there to play soccer with him. So I said, I'm going to study business. And so I graduated with a business degree with a concentration in finance. Gravitated towards the numbers, the investments, and the Excel spreadsheets, all that fun stuff. And so, with a concentration in finance, I got an internship the summer before my senior year at Houghton with Northwestern Mutual, doing investments, life insurance, long term care, disability insurance. We were slinging insurance for all intents and purposes. We couldn't really dive into the investment world until later on when we got our Series 6 and 63 and all those fun different certifications you had to get. So, yeah, I was there for 2 years
Hmm.
and I got to the point, Eugen, where I felt a bit lost. Actually, after a year there, I realized that I don't think this is for me. I don't know much about myself yet, being a 22-year-old coming out of college, but something just didn't sit right. And so I'm the type of person where I'm like, I want to make sure that I give this thing the full shot. Right. I don't
Okay.
want to be, a year in and feeling like, I don't know if this is for me. I want to give it 110% so that I don't ever have to look back and say, but what if? What if I gave it more? And so I committed to staying another year and really seeing it through. And I still felt the same way. Like, all right,
Mm.
I'm a faith guy. I'm like, God, what do you want me to do? I don't know if this is the path for me. And so I ended up leaving Northwestern after 2 years. This was in 2018. And for the first time in my life, I had no path laid out for me. Right. It was like you go through high school, you go through college, you're told what classes to take, and you just go with life. You kind of float downstream. And I left Northwestern and I didn't have a plan. Right. I didn't have anything lined up after that. And so I kid you not, for 3 months straight, I could not get out of bed. Like I struggled. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing today. I felt so lost and purposeless, and I had never felt that in my life. I've been a very joyful, energetic, optimistic person, and this feeling was very foreign to me, and it hurt.
I wanted to ask about the stuckness. It's notable that you stuck around. Most people, they'll feel it. They're like, gosh, this is not for me, and pretty much pivot out or bounce. And yet you committed another year. And I think there's some folks that are stuck for years, maybe not just 1 year. But what were some of the clear indicators as you're moving into that and you're like, okay, I'm giving it my 110% and I'm still not feeling aligned or vibing with it? Like, tell us a little bit about that experience.
I look back at that job, and although I left because it didn't align with me, it didn't really fit me and my personality, what my giftings were. I still look back with a lot of gratefulness because it taught me how to build a business. I talked about being a soccer referee and how I just got plastered with "you suck, ref," and like, "what are you doing?" And then I go to Northwestern where you're making cold calls every single day and getting a ton of no's. I
Mhm.
love the fact that I had to get out of that comfort zone and had to face a lot of rejection. That taught me a lot. Say that question one more time, actually.
The question is just what were the indicators? What were the signals that you knew I am really not enjoying this? And maybe this is because you're a soccer player, you've been through very difficult times, almost turning down the signals and saying, I'm gonna push through the pain and still be committed to it. What were the signals that over a year you're like, this is still really not what I want to be doing?
Yeah, that is a great question. I noticed that one of my giftings was just being in a relationship with people, building relationships and going deeper with people. I didn't want to have surface level relationships where I knew 500 people, but I only knew one thing about them. I'd rather have, 20 to 30 really deep relationships. And I started to realize that I loved teaching, I loved educating people, but for some reason, a lot of people would take that as, oh, you're just trying to sell me insurance, right? That's really what we're in, the insurance business. And for me being 22 years old, selling insurance to friends and family, a lot of them were my age without kids. They don't need life insurance. Like, let's be honest. So it was selling something that I wasn't convicted about. And that is we'll get into it, but it's very different than what I feel today. Getting to teach leadership is so different. The conviction's there. And so I was just selling something that, although I liked teaching finance and educating, I wasn't convicted by what we were selling.
Yeah.
So that was a big part of it. I think I tried to convince myself over time that I did like it. I drank the Kool-Aid,
Yeah.
but eventually I'm like, no, these relationships are much more important to maintain.
Yeah, and I want to call that out. The signals are so important because oftentimes people just try to mute that or just say, well, this is just part of the job. I shouldn't pay attention to that and just keep barreling through. And, I'm sure I definitely know people that have been in careers for years feeling that, but have pretty much said, I'm moving it to the wayside. I'm just doing what I have to do, which is completely fine if they're okay with it. But you make the jump out of that selling insurance and you're without a plan. And I'm not sure, Jesse, if you're a planner, but that is very disruptive and difficult for those that are planning. So you had mentioned 3 months, can't even get out of bed. Like, tell us a little bit about that. Like, what happened?
Yeah. So I am a planner, and I think that's why it hit me so hard was because I'm pretty structured in my life, my disciplines and my priorities that I just felt like I didn't have a path, right? So I think that's what made it exponentially harder. If I was very type B and just go with the flow, I think I would have enjoyed that. Like, I get a lot of rest.
Right. Yeah.
But I think just knowing my personality, knowing that I love looking into the future and knowing what's ahead, I think that, yeah, that's why it stung a little bit more. But yeah, I was in that kind of period of, we'll call it down in the valley.
Yeah.
And I had a conversation with a friend at that time. His name's Jeff, and he was a former soccer teammate of mine. He's like, "Hey, you've torn your ACL twice so far, right? Have you ever considered athletic training or physical therapy?" And right away, Eugene, something just like clicked. I was like, "No," but my mind went right to athletic training versus physical therapy because having torn my ACL twice and going through all that rehab and working with athletic trainers in high school and in college, I'm like, I want to do that because I had thought back to my experience with them. They were not just people who helped me with injuries. They were mentors to me. Like, I loved getting to spend time with them, even when I wasn't hurt. All the athletes would go hang out with the athletic trainer, and it would just a really fun and inviting space. And I said, I'm going to go do that. I'm going to go get my master's degree in sports medicine, right? Go from business, financial planning to now sports medicine and health. And so I I got a master's degree at Damon College in Buffalo, New York from 2019 to 2021, and then worked for Rochester Regional here, a local hospital. And I was contracted out to a local high school. And
Wow. So you really went all in on it. And you know what's interesting is it's aligned to what you had mentioned about what didn't work in the financial planning side. You loved relationships, you loved teaching, didn't believe and have the conviction on the selling point. However, in this athletic trainer world, it's combining both of the relationship. You're teaching people how to rehabilitate, and you're serving such a greater purpose of them getting back to normal or getting back into the sports. And so you contracted out, you're working at a local high school. What was the experience? What was the emotion or feeling?
I loved it because Eugen, there was no pressure to sell anything. It was like, hey, just come in and let's talk. And to be honest, I was in a part of the city of Rochester that was not great, right? Many single parent homes, a lot of kids I knew were living with their grandparents. Nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying that it's just harder for these kids, right? Growing up compared to, some other places. And I loved that I got to be someone who would just say, "Hey, how are you actually doing?" That
Mm,
mentorship capacity, that role. Like yes, I cared about their injuries and I would help them with that, but I wanted to go deeper than that with these athletes. I knew that they had struggles that surpassed what they were dealing with physically. So that was so rewarding to be able to just form relationships and bonds with these kids that they could open up and share some of those struggles. That was really meaningful to me.
sounds very powerful and totally in that wheelhouse of like, this is what I love. And I can only imagine you leaving after days, having those deep conversations, rehabbing, connecting, people getting vulnerable, opening up, and just leaving satisfied. I mean, what was that experience as you would leave the clinic for the day? What would you be thinking?
Filled.
Yeah.
That it wasn't like I missed out on something today. It was like today was a complete day, where I got to use my gifts. I loved being a practitioner, like a clinician, getting to help with injuries. But I also, one of my passions, Eugen, is bringing people back to what really matters in this life. Like we'll call it being philosophic, but I loved just taking people deeper. And I got to have those conversations every day. I would make it a habit of checking these kids' screen times. And I'm like, what is this? The average time with their permission, right? I'm not just taking their phones.
I mean, they're there to get like an ankle wrap. You're like, wait, what's your screen time? Like, dude, just wrap the
Exactly.
ankle. What is this?
I read a book called The Anxious Generation, and it's all about what screen-based technology is, like the effects that it's having on these kids.
Yeah.
And it just, oh my gosh, I felt for them. So I'm like, let's check your
Mm.
screen time. Let's hold you accountable to this. I kid you not, the average time was 13 hours a day. 13
Wait,
hours.
what?
While they're in school, I don't know how that's possible, but I'm like,
Why?
these kids are being filled with, honestly, most of it's crap all
Yep.
day.
Yep.
And I love that I get to be someone who can kind of like pull them back. Like, hey,
Mm,
who are you? Like, what really matters here? Just be
yeah.
careful how much time you're spending there because X, Y, and Z. Right. So yes, I got to implement really two of my passions there. The reason I loved athletic training and why it clicked was because I loved the rehab process. Not
Mm,
many people, when they go to physical therapy, want to be there. I was like, I'm pumped to go back. I get to do another exercise that I couldn't before. I get to make progress. And so I'm like, I want to do that for athletes as well as, educate them and help them see the bigger picture.
yeah. And Jesse, just to hear you talk about it, it's so powerful. And I'm like, and the story's not over yet. There's like another twist to it. And so you're in this, you're feeling filled, you're helping kids, you're really trying to get them back to what really matters, zooming out. And then what happens next?
3.5 years, actually, a year and a half into athletic training, a career where I got a master's degree. I got a bunch of debt because of it. I'm like, I'm going to be here for a long time, at least 10 years. And I get a call a year and a half into this from my uncle, 9:30 at night. Like, what the heck is he calling me for? Like, he lives in North Carolina. It's 9:30. I'm about to go to bed. And it's like, it must be an emergency. So I pick up the phone. His name's Chip. He's like, hey, Jesse, I know this is like really random right now, but God's put you on my heart to ask you this question. I've had a lot of conversations with people and you keep coming up. I'm trying to phase out of this business. He's a leadership development coach. And he's like, I want to train you. I want you to be my apprentice for the next year and just see what happens. I'm like, what? Wait a second. I'm like, well, first of all, why me? There was that imposter syndrome, and he was encouraging. He laid out gifts that I have that he would say, here's why I think you'd be a good fit. I was like, that's really encouraging to me, but still, why me? I haven't run a business before. I haven't, run a company into the ground and learned all these vital leadership skills. I had had a lot of leadership positions up until that point in soccer, in our church, in other places, but running a business,
Hmm.
never. And I had a conversation with my wife, and like 30 minutes later, it was like same thing, click. It's like, I have to do this. And one of the reasons for that, Eugene, is, in this leadership work, we say that this is not just a better way to lead, but it's a better way to live. I'm like, I have nothing to lose here. If I'm learning about healthy leadership, how to effectively serve people and to lift them up, to inspire people, I have nothing to lose, right? Even if I don't pursue this path with him and take over this company someday, I'm gonna be ecstatic getting to learn about healthy leadership. And so I'm like, "Let's go. Let's do it."
So, okay, when did you say let's go? Was it on the phone call, or did you have to say, okay, Uncle Chip, I get it. Can you give me some time to think about it? Or were you just convicted again? Just, I'm going for it.
But actually, I'm pretty sure I texted him back that night because I wanted to have a conversation with my wife. It wasn't gonna be a, "Yeah, let's go." Like, if you're married, you need to have that conversation with your wife
Yeah, for
first
sure. Yep.
before you pivot. And yeah, I think I texted him an hour later. If not, it was the next morning. I was like, I'll sleep on it, but within a span of at least, no more than 24 hours. It's like, yep, we're doing this. And haven't looked back since. He threw me right into the fire with coaching engagements, on my feet, teaching in the classroom. And I was like, all right. Every time I've said yes, Eugen, to something that was terrifying, the other side is so good. It's so good. And so I've just learned to say yes. We define courage as moving forward in the face of fear. It's not that fear is gone, but just choose to move forward anyways. If you know that there's no like physical danger to you, it's more mental, just go
Yeah.
for it. You,
Yeah.
you'll always be grateful for that you did.
That is such a powerful word of wisdom. As you and I both know, many people are locked in fear. And I love it that you said it's more mental than physical. It
Hmm.
is the what ifs, it is a how could I, it is trying to almost calculate the jump before you actually, and there has to be a measure of that, right?
Yes.
And it will never be 100% clear of I know the result I'm gonna get. There wasn't a guarantee. And so, Jesse, how did you unwind the athletic trainer world and then move? It sounded like pretty much the next day, maybe you did it. Like, what? How did you unwind that? And what was the ramp up into Leaders Inspire?
So I worked both jobs for 2 years. At that time, we
Okay,
didn't have a ton of engagements. We really ramped up a year and a half ago, which is when I went per diem as an athletic trainer. All right. So
got it.
helped out whenever I could. But Leaders Inspire, leadership development work was the main focus. But I've started to realize over the last year that the athletic training was not a waste of time. Getting a master's degree, even though I incurred a lot of debt, it was not a wasting of time. This was a stepping stone because we teach in leadership that you need to be inwardly sound, right? If you
Hmm.
are not inwardly sound, you cannot hope to take care of the people around you effectively, right? You can't. You got to put your own oxygen mask on first. And part of being inwardly sound is being holistically healthy mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, financially, right? Financial planning, that was a stepping stone. I get to help people with that and coach and just being physically healthy. Such an important aspect. And everything has just led to me having more knowledge and wisdom in these areas to be able to coach more effectively. Which so I'm like, I'm just grateful for all those opportunities. They were not a waste
Yeah.
whatsoever.
Yeah. I'm wondering what was the toughest part of the ramp up? Because you've been in it 3 years and you're doing two jobs at once where you're going per diem as a trainer and you're going, I'm assuming all in on the Leaders Inspire. And so you're balancing two worlds. What were some of the toughest challenges in that time?
From a capacity standpoint, managed it really well. The hardest, I would say the biggest stumbling block for me was the imposter syndrome, right? I was learning all these leadership skills and techniques and tools and strategies and getting all these resources, but still at that 2 year mark, I was like, still, why me? It was all up
Mm.
here.
Yep. Yep.
And after that two year mark, I really did some soul searching and I was like, yeah, why me? What right do I have to teach leadership? I'm 31 years old. Again, haven't driven any companies into the ground or, amass these entire followings. Why me? And I came around to the fact, and this was a quote I heard by Stephen Shedlesky. He says, leadership is an attempt to leave the people and world around you better than you found them. That's all leadership is. Make an attempt, right? Emphasis on attempt and better. I have nothing to prove. I am simply a conduit to the amazing mentors, coaches, leaders in my life. All the books that I've read, the discussions that I've had, I just get to be a conduit to pass that on. I don't have to have 30, 40, 50 years of experience. I just have to make the attempt to serve people. And I can rest secure in that. And I have nothing to prove. And that's been such a game changer for me mentally in that journey of like, you're not an imposter. You're just trying to serve people. If it's not about you, and they give this to speakers, the advice to speakers like, hey, don't worry about what you have to say, just worry about trying to serve them. And it'll come across much better, right? But when the focus is on us, we have that fear that of being found out. But when all we have to do is focus on other people, who can fault us for that?
And that's so powerful. I think that mindset is the transformation of turning down the imposter syndrome and really focusing on what is the goal, what is the aspiration I'm pursuing after, not the do I have the subject matter expertise to convince somebody that I'm worthy of being here. I love what you shared is just I'm here to lead, to make someone better. I have nothing to prove. And that is so freeing. So and so as you're moving into this now, year 3, what's the emotion? Now, think about when you left the clinic before, you're like, I feel filled. And now as you move to this next level, and so what's that emotion? What's the feeling? What's the experience for you now as you lead Leaders Inspire?
Yeah. So we'll jump back a little bit. Right back in athletic training, I would say my favorite part was getting to encourage people to think deeper. Right. And I got to do that with athletes. Some of the athletes were like, God, Jesse, here he goes again. Right. Sage Jesse. And I would get these comments by the athletes like, just here we go again. Like, I don't care. I love it. I think it's so important. And now I get to have these conversations every day. We know that leadership is much deeper than management, right? You look at the leader versus manager. Leader is you're in the pack and you're pulling that object uphill with them versus management. You're sitting on top of people and you're directing them, right? It's much deeper. Leadership is a sacrifice, and I love when people get it. When I meet with a coachee one on one, our mission at Leaders Inspire is to equip leaders to deploy the greatness within people and their organizations. We believe that everyone possesses unique gifts. Have to believe that. And so I'm not trying to get my coachee to fit my mold for what I want for them. I want to help them gain the self awareness to understand what makes them tick, what brings them strength, so that they can go and live into who they were created to be versus just try to live up to other people's standards all day long. And so when my favorite part of this work is when someone gets that. It's like they
Mm.
get to that point where they're thinking deeper, they're celebrating more of who they are rather than like, I can't fit this, measure up to this standard of leadership. Leadership is hard, but it's the coachees who are just so hard on themselves. Like, yes, we need to make improvements, but if all you focus on is what you're failing at, you will not last long and this will not be worth it. Leadership is worth it. It means something when we can celebrate the progress that we're making, as well as, hey, here are the tweaks that I need to make to live more effectively into my leadership. So I love when people get to celebrate and they experience victories. Hey, I have a better relationship with my daughter, right? I have better communication with my wife. Those are the testimonials that we get that means so much more to me, honestly. Like, I probably shouldn't say this, but they mean more to me than what they're doing in their businesses because Eugen, that it's not just a strategy they're implementing to get ahead at work. It's actually who they're becoming, and it impacts everything.
Absolutely. And I would argue those relationships are 1,000 times more important and substantial and impactful than having good relationships with your board, good relationship with your peers or direct reports. John Maxwell says this is he measures his success by the people that are closest to him. And to actually see him as a loving father, a loving husband, a loving grandfather, and that meant so much to me as someone that has achieved enormous success. I mean, number one leadership writer out there. And yet that was his measure of success. Not how many books did I sell, how many people showed up to my events, but do the people closest to me and those that will actually be at my funeral actually know me and love me. And so I would argue, Jesse, what you're doing is quite substantially important. And those relationships are more important, more valuable, because you and I both know with leaders, there is a set time and an organization, influence, impact. And as time goes on, they may stay there, they may not. And then you go on to the next organization. But families for life, better, worse, or indifferent, is that those relationships matter most. And I love what you shared about Leaders Inspire because that's actually why I started Extraordinary Unlocked. That every person has this extraordinary in them, and there was something in their career journey, something in them personally that unlocked that extraordinary. And imagine if you did not say yes to Uncle Chip, or you did not say yes to athletic training, or you did not say yes to financial planning. There was something beneficial in each of those stages of your career, and even in your marriage, because if folks are listening to this and are married, that is actually sometimes what is building into the fear. How am I going to sell my spouse or my partner on this thing? And when there is support coming from that person, you can almost feel invincible and just say, I can almost do anything with their support. So I think that's tremendous of just being able to have a partner or spouse buying in and saying, I'm all in on you. I believe in you and I believe you can do it. And I just want to even ask, like, what was that like for your spouse as you, and you didn't just jump ship. You made it almost this, I'm doing two different roles, but gonna phase out of one and really move into the other. Like, what was that like? Especially with the financial pressure sometimes. That adds another layer to it.
Yeah. No, that's a good question. At the time, there was definitely concern in her because I had jumped the athletic or the financial planning ship and went to athletic training. And she's like, "Wait, you just started this. Like, are you sure?" And she didn't want me, and I didn't want this for myself. I actually really admire people who are able to stay at a job for like 40 years and become like a master at their craft. I'm
Hmm.
not saying there's anything wrong with job hopping, but I don't think we give jobs enough of a chance, to really to get what we I hate to say that, but like to get what we need from them, like to learn everything that there is to learn from that company, right? So that we can effectively take those steps forward. But yeah, I had that in mind too. I'm like, yeah, I get that concern. I don't want to be a job hopper and just lose interest after 2 years. But that wasn't what this was. I was in love with athletic training, right? There was no like burnt out of this after a year and a half. Like, no, I loved it. And that's what made this transition, this pivot so much more meaningful. It's because I knew I had to do it despite already loving what I was doing. That's how I knew that it was the right fit for me.
Yeah. And that's powerful. I think that's where, I mean, the curiosity and the conviction involved in that of just, could I do this? Maybe I could do this. But it was really that conviction saying, I'm going to go for it and
Mhm.
going full courage and overcoming that fear and having a community of people supporting you. And I'm curious what community supported you through that because as you said, we're not doing it for other people. We're really doing this because I've got this conviction. I know it. And we do need a community to sort of support us into that next phase. And I'm curious who are some of those people?
Definitely my wife. Just yes, there was concern from her, but also like trust. Stephen Covey Jr. says we have a less of a problem being trustworthy and more of a problem extending trust to people, which I really resonate with. And I just had a lot of people who said, I trust you with this decision, right? Ultimately,
Mm,
they knew it was my decision to make. But when you have people who are encouraging you to say that say, yes, I actually also see those gifts in you that you would be good at that. And that takes courage from people, right? I hate to say that, but it actually does take a measure of courage to go to someone and say, I see this strength in you. It takes vulnerability, right? We don't
yes.
do that a lot. We'll say, like, hey, good job at this. But we won't say specifically, hey, you're gifted at speaking, you're gifted at writing, right? Whatever it is. And I think I had so many amazing people who were able to be specific about what they saw in me, right? And actually like coach me into this. That's what made the greatest impact, right? Parents, they were at every single soccer game I've ever had somehow, even though they had 6 kids who all played soccer, who were off in different directions. I'm like,
Wow.
how did you do that? And so just knowing that I had tons of family love and support to make that decision, it
Yeah.
means everything.
Yeah. That's tremendous. I love that. And it sounds like, Jesse, you're not even done yet. You're just moving into your calling in the beginning of it and continuing to grow and lead leaders inspire. So thank you so much for sharing your career journey. It's been tremendous. And anyone that's listening would love to hear your piece of advice. If they're stuck in a career, basically they know this is not for them, or they are doing something they deeply love and realizing there's a life-changing opportunity here. What advice would you give to them?
One of my favorite quotes is by Albert Schweitzer. He says that success is not the key to happiness, but happiness is the key to success. And I just think I'm not saying that you need to be like in love with wherever you are and you should always stay in the same spot. But I do think that when we can find more joy and grow where we're planted and stop wishing for the grass to be greener on the other side, I think that opens up a lot of doors, right? When you can be the person who's shining in a company because you've got a positive attitude, you've got a growth mindset, people look to you. And other companies, if you're supposed to be somewhere else, you'll find that you will be at the right company if you prioritize on being happy versus
Mm,
always just chasing success and chasing the numbers and trying to attain happiness by the time you get to retirement. Like, that's not what life's about. But can we be grateful and appreciate where we're at and work really hard wherever we're at and let the doors kind of naturally open after that?
yeah, that is profound. I think that quote just hit me so deeply. Success is not the key to happiness, but happiness is the key to success.
Hmm.
Love that. Thank you so much for sharing that advice and just sharing your story vulnerably. We're moving into our lightning round, and I came with three questions for you. I think I think number one, after three ACL tears, which is no small
True.
event, three times. But two, I
Just
thought it
two.
was three. So two
My
ACL
brother tore
tears.
his 3 times.
Okay. So between you, the 5 ACL tears, just kidding. So 2 ACL tears. What sports do you play now? You're not the young man you used to be. And so what sports do you play now? Or are you still playing soccer all in?
I'm still playing soccer.
Oh, that's amazing. That's
Foolish,
amazing.
but I love it. It's still something that brings so much joy to my life that it's really hard to hang up the boots.
All right. Love that. All right. Number 2, what is your go-to snack? Like you're like, "Hey, whenever I'm in a bind and I just am sort of craving a snack, what is your go-to?"
Peanut butter and jelly.
Peanut butter and jelly. I love that. Are you a crunchy peanut butter, smooth peanut butter, organic peanut butter?
I like the natural peanut butter. I don't know if that's necessarily organic. Probably. Natural, crunchy.
Natural crunchy. All right, very good. I
Grape
am
jelly.
also
Homemade grape jelly from my mother. That's key.
my college roommate, I remember living with him and his go-to is peanut butter and jelly. I judged him severely the first week, and then I found myself having peanut butter and jelly sandwiches on the fly. And now I'm a father to 5 children. We do PB&J all the time. So I am that deeply resonates with me. Okay,
It's the perfect
last
pregame snack as well, or meal. So if you're
yes.
a soccer player, it's perfect energy source.
I love that. That's perfect. Okay, so last, this is a question I was so curious about. One of the most impactful leaders you admired and why? And it has to be someone you actually know, not, hey, I that person far, far away, I've read their book, but someone you actually looked up to and you're like, man, that leader just I just admired the way they led, and this is why.
I'm gonna pick my father. He is not your traditional leader where he can cast vision and he's really strategic. He sacrifices so much of himself for other people. He's just got that servant leadership mindset where it's I'll get out of the way, I'll let you have all the glory. I don't need to be in the spotlight, but how can I serve you behind the scenes? And he's been doing that his whole life. He's the leader of his company, and yet he's still washing the vehicles. He's still doing all the grunt work, like, he leads by example every day, and, he was really quiet growing up. He wasn't someone to be, like, super philosophical, but he just led purely by example, and I've learned so much from just watching him
Mm,
my whole life, and I'm very grateful for him and the example that he set for all of us kids.
Jesse, that was so powerful. I had goosebumps. I mean, you've been blessed with a wonderful father.
Stay blessed.
Say that. So thank you so much for being on Extraordinary Unlocked. I'm excited to see what Leaders Inspire continue to do. and just excited to see where your career continues to grow. So, Jesse, thank you so much for sharing your story with the Extraordinaires. Extraordinaires, we'll see you next time. Thanks for hanging in there. Talk
Thanks,
soon.
guys. See ya.
Bye.